Elder Valen stood on the crystal balcony of the High Council chamber and watched his world burn. The beautiful blue sky of Azura Prime was now filled with smoke and the terrible orange glow of burning cities. Far above in the darkness of space, the Korthak warships continued their bombardment. Each flash of light meant another 1,000 of his people had died. The Zilani had never known war before this day. Their world was peaceful and green, with no dangerous animals and gentle weather. The tallest buildings were made of living crystal that grew toward the sun like flowers. Gardens floated in the sky, held up by bioenergy fields that the Zilani had learned to control over many centuries. Children played in parks where the grass sang soft melodies when touched. It was paradise, but paradise meant nothing when death came from the stars. Valen touched the smooth surface of the council table where 12 other elders sat in worried silence. Their blue skin looked pale with fear and their large eyes were wide with shock. None of them had ever seen violence like this before. The Zilani had evolved without predators and without conflict. They solved problems by talking and sharing. They had never needed weapons or armies. The massive doors of the chamber slid open and Defense Coordinator Nera ran inside. Her flowing robes were torn and dirty from helping evacuate the outer cities. Her usually calm face was filled with panic. "The northern continent is lost," she said in a voice that shook with emotion. "The Korthak have destroyed all our orbital platforms and the population centers. 3 million people are dead. The underground shelters are full, but they will not protect us from the planet crackers if the Korthak choose to use them." Elder Temin, the oldest member of the council, spoke in a whisper. "Why are they doing this to us? We have done nothing wrong. We have never harmed anyone." Valen knew the answer, but saying it out loud made it feel more real and terrible. "They are doing this because we are weak, because we cannot fight back. The Korthak Empire takes what it wants and kills those who cannot stop them. That is the way they live." Through the crystal windows they could see more explosions in the distance. The great city of Merlion with its floating towers was now just smoke and rubble. The Harmony Gardens where Zilani children learned to speak with plants were gone. The University of Biosciences where they had developed healing medicines for dozens of worlds had been vaporized by plasma bombs. Defense Coordinator Naira placed a data crystal on the table. Her hands were shaking. "Our long-range sensors show more Korthak ships coming from the outer rim. They have brought planet crackers. If they use those weapons, Azura Prime will be broken into pieces. Every living thing will die." The council chamber fell into complete silence. Outside, the sounds of distant explosions continued like thunder that never stopped. Elder Valen looked at each of his fellow council members. Some were crying. Others sat frozen in shock. All of them were waiting for him to make a decision that he did not know how to make. "There must be something we can do," said Elder Jorian. "Some way to negotiate with them. We can offer them our medical technology, our biosynthesis systems. Our orbital gardens produce enough food for 20 worlds." Naira shook her head sadly. "I already tried to contact them. Their response was that dead people do not need food or medicine. They want our world for its resources, and they want us gone." Valen closed his large eyes and tried to think. The Zilani had contact with many other species in the galaxy. The Altarian Federation was powerful, and had helped them with trade agreements. The Centauri Republic had excellent ships and strong armies. The Vegan Collective controlled dozens of star systems. Surely one of them would help. "Send emergency messages to all our allies," Valen said. "Tell them what is happening here. Offer them anything they want in exchange for military protection." Defense Coordinator Naira worked quickly at her console. The responses came back within hours. Each one was the same. The other species would not risk war with the Korthak Empire. They were sorry, but they could not help. The Zilani were on their own. As the sun set on Azura Prime, the bombardment from space grew worse. The Korthak were no longer targeting just cities. They were destroying forests and farms and anything that could support life. This was not conquest. This was extermination. Elder Valen stood alone on the balcony as explosions lit up the night sky. His people were dying and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The Zilani had never hurt anyone. They had spent centuries helping other species with medicine and food and knowledge. But now when they needed help, they were abandoned. The doors opened behind him and Naira returned. Her face was grim. "The other continents are reporting massive casualties. The Korthak will begin the final assault at sunrise. After that, we will have perhaps 6 hours before the planet crackers are in position." Valen felt something he had never experienced before. It was not fear or sadness. It was anger. Pure burning anger at the injustice of watching his peaceful people die while the galaxy turned away. The Zilani had always solved problems by being reasonable and kind. But reason and kindness meant nothing to creatures like the Korthak. "There is one more thing we can try," Valen said slowly. "Something that goes against everything we believe." He walked back to the council table where the other elders waited. His voice was steady now. "We will send a distress call on all frequencies, not just to our allies, to everyone, to any species that might be listening." Elder Taman looked confused. "But we have already tried that. No one will help us." Valen picked up the communication device and began recording. "This message is different. We are not asking for help as diplomats or traitors. We are begging for help as people who are about to die." The other elders watched in silence as Valen composed the most important message in Zilani history. "To any who receive this transmission, we are the Zilani of Azura Prime. We are a peaceful people facing extinction. The Korthak Empire is destroying our world and killing our children. We offer our advanced medical knowledge, our biosynthesis technology, and our orbital gardens in exchange for military protection. Please, if there is mercy in the galaxy, help us. We have never asked for violence before, but we are asking now. Save us." Nera took the recording and prepared to broadcast it across known space on every frequency the Zilani had access to. As the message went out into the darkness between the stars, Valen wondered if anyone would hear it. And if they did hear it, would anyone care enough to come? Above them, the Korthak ships continued their deadly work. Time was running out for Azura Prime. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee on the bridge of the UES Defender when the distress call came through. The Deep Space Monitoring Station had picked up the transmission from 17 light-years away. Jake listened to the message 3 times before he believed what he was hearing. The bridge crew of the Defender had gone completely quiet. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez at the communication station looked up from her console with wide eyes. "Sir, this is being broadcast on every frequency. They are really desperate." Jake set down his coffee cup and stared at the main screen showing the star map. A small blue dot marked the location of Azura Prime. He had never heard of the Zilani before, but the pain in their message was something any human could understand. People were dying and asking for help. "Rodriguez, patch me through to Earth Command," Jake ordered. "Priority Alpha transmission." The communication took several minutes to reach Earth through the quantum relay network. When Admiral Lisa Carter appeared on the main screen, her face was already serious. She had received the same message. "Captain Morrison, I assume you are calling about the Zilani situation," the Admiral said. Behind her, Jake could see the busy command center on Luna Base where dozens of officers were working at their stations. "Yes, ma'am. What are your orders?" Admiral Carter paused for a moment. "Return to Earth immediately. We are calling an emergency council meeting. This is bigger than one ship can handle." Jake nodded and cut the transmission. As the Defender changed course toward home, he could not stop thinking about the message from Elder Valen. The Zilani sounded like decent people who had never hurt anyone. Now they were going to die because they could not fight back. 2 days later, Jake stood in the Great Assembly Hall of Earth Defense Command. The room was filled with the most important people in human space. President Alex Morgan sat at the head of the table with his advisors. Admiral Carter was there with the other fleet commanders. Dr. Kevin Walsh from the Xenobiology Department had brought stacks of data about known alien species. President Morgan activated the holographic display in the center of the room. The image showed the Kepler 442 system with Azura Prime highlighted in red. Around it were dozens of Korthak warships shown as angry orange dots. "The situation is clear," President Morgan said in his calm, political voice. "An alien species is facing extinction from another alien species. This is not our fight. We have no treaty obligations with either side. Getting involved would risk human lives for people we have never met." General Robert Kane, head of Earth's military forces, stood up. His uniform was covered with medals from 30 years of defending human colonies. "Mr. President, with respect, the Korthak Empire controls over 40 star systems. They are expanding toward human space. If we let them destroy the Zilani, we show weakness. Predators always test weak prey first." Dr. Walsh activated his datapad and shared information with the room. "I have been studying the available intelligence on both species. The Zilani are indeed peaceful. They have helped dozens of worlds with medical advances and agricultural improvements. The Korthak are different. They are conquerors who believe that might makes right. They have destroyed 6 civilizations in the past century. Admiral Carter stood and walked to the holographic display. She pointed at the Korthak fleet positions. The Zilani message was broadcast galaxy-wide. Every major power heard it. The Altarian Federation declined to help. The Centauri Republic sent regrets. The Vegan Collective said they were too busy with their own problems. Everyone is afraid of the Korthak. President Morgan looked troubled. Admiral, we have worked for 50 years to build peaceful relationships with our alien neighbors. If we start a war with the Korthak Empire, those relationships could be damaged. Mr. President, Admiral Carter said quietly, what kind of relationships do we want? The kind where we watch innocent people die and do nothing? Or the kind where we stand up for what is right? Jake had been listening to the debate for 2 hours. Finally, he could not stay quiet anymore. Permission to speak, sir? President Morgan nodded. I have been in space for 15 years, Jake said. I have met traders and diplomats and scientists from a dozen different worlds. Most of them are good people just trying to live their lives. But I have also met pirates and slavers and killers. The one thing I learned is that bullies only understand one language. Dr. Walsh pulled up more data on his console. There is something else we should consider. I accessed the galactic databases through our diplomatic channels. Humans are listed in the alien records as species 847C. Our classification is Deathworlders. Extreme caution advised. Most alien species consider us too dangerous for normal contact. The room fell silent. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What does that mean exactly? It means, Dr. Walsh continued, that Earth is considered one of the most dangerous planets in known space. Our gravity is higher than most worlds. Our weather is violent. Our animal life is aggressive. Most aliens think we are barely controlled savages who learn to build spaceships. Admiral Carter smiled grimly. Then maybe it is time to show them what savages can do when innocent people need protection. President Morgan stood and walked to the great windows that looked out over Earth's blue oceans. For long minutes he said nothing. Finally he turned back to the room. Admiral Carter, you have authorization for Operation Sanctuary Shield. Prepare the fleet for immediate deployment. The room exploded into activity. Fleet commanders began calling their ships. Supply officers started calculating fuel and ammunition needs. Marine commanders planned ground operations. Dr. Walsh began analyzing Zilani biotechnology from the data in their distress message. Jake found himself assigned to lead the advanced scout group. His ship, the Defender, would be joined by 5 other fast vessels, equipped with the newest stealth technology. Their job was to reach the Azura Prime system first and gather intelligence. As Jake prepared to leave Earth, Admiral Carter pulled him aside in the corridor outside the briefing room. Captain, I want you to understand something. The galaxy sees us as monsters. Most alien species are afraid of humans because we come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. That made us tough and mean and very good at warfare. Jake nodded. I understand, ma'am. No, I do not think you do, Admiral Carter said seriously. When we arrive at Azura Prime, we are not just saving the Zilani. We are announcing to the entire galaxy that the humans have arrived, and we will not tolerate the strong picking on the weak. Every alien government will be watching to see what we do. She handed Jake a sealed data packet. These are your full mission orders. The main fleet will follow 12 hours behind you. Your job is to make sure the Korthak know we are coming. As Jake walked toward the shuttle that would take him to his ship, he thought about the Zilani message one more time. They had asked for mercy from the galaxy and been ignored. They had no way of knowing that their call for help had reached the one species that alien civilizations feared most. The Zilani expected aid from peacekeepers and diplomats. Instead, they were about to get help from Deathworlders. The Zirian Nebula was a swirling mass of purple and gold gases that stretched across 3 star systems. Captain Jake Morrison had chosen this location carefully because the nebula's radiation would hide his ships from enemy sensors. The 6 human vessels floated silently in the cosmic clouds, waiting for their prey to arrive. Jake stood on the bridge of the Defender watching the sensor displays. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez was monitoring all communication frequencies, while Dr. Kevin Walsh studied the alien technology data they had captured from intercepted Korthak transmissions. Contact, Rodriguez called out. 3 large vessels approaching from the Korthak-held systems. Configuration matches their heavy supply convoy pattern. Jake moved to the tactical display. The approaching ships were massive cargo haulers escorted by 2 Korthak battlecruisers. According to their intelligence, these convoys carried weapons and supplies to support the siege of Azura Prime. Battle stations, Jake ordered quietly. All ships maintain stealth protocols. We go in fast and hit them before they know we are here. The human ships were much smaller than the Korthak vessels, but they had advantages the aliens did not expect. Human stealth technology was designed by a species that had spent thousands of years hunting each other. Human weapons were built by engineers who understood that sometimes you had to destroy something completely to make sure it stayed dead. Jake watched as the Korthak convoy moved deeper into the nebula. The enemy ships were moving slowly and confidently. They had no idea that death was waiting for them in the swirling gases. "Rodriguez, open a channel to all ships," Jake commanded. "Attack pattern Delta. Target their engines first, then their weapons. I want prisoners, not corpses." The 6 human ships dropped their stealth fields simultaneously and opened fire. The Korthak had never seen anything like it. Focused beam weapons sliced through their shields like they were made of paper. Explosive projectiles punched holes in their armor plating. Electronic warfare systems crashed their computers and blinded their sensors. The first Korthak battlecruiser tried to turn and fight back, but human tactics were unlike anything in their military experience. Instead of standing off and exchanging fire like civilized species, the humans flew directly at their targets. The UES Striker rammed into the alien ship at full speed, using reinforced armor plating to crush through the enemy hull. Commander Thex of the Korthak's Second Fleet could not believe what he was seeing on his tactical display. His ships were being destroyed by vessels half their size using weapons and tactics that made no sense. Who were these creatures that fought like wild animals with advanced technology? "All ships retreat," Thex ordered in panic. "Send emergency transmission to High Command. We are under attack by unknown hostile species." But it was too late for retreat. The human ships surrounded the convoy like wolves around wounded prey. More boarding pods launched from the human vessels and punched through the Korthak hulls. Inside those pods were human marines wearing powered armor and carrying weapons designed to kill efficiently in close quarters. Colonel Maria Santos led the assault on the main supply ship. She had fought pirates and raiders for 20 years, but this was her first time facing a major alien military force. The Korthak were larger than humans, with thick gray skin and 4 powerful arms. Their weapons fired plasma bolts that could melt through steel, but the Korthak had evolved on a low-gravity world with a thin atmosphere. They moved slowly and tired quickly in the heavy artificial gravity that humans preferred. Their plasma weapons were powerful but took time to recharge between shots. Human assault rifles fired hundreds of bullets per minute and never needed to pause. The battle inside the ship was brief and violent. The Korthak soldiers had expected to face other civilized species that would fight according to galactic warfare conventions. Instead, they found themselves fighting creatures that used explosive grenades in enclosed spaces and shot wounded enemies to make sure they stayed down. Within 30 minutes, all 3 Korthak ships had been captured or destroyed. The human fleet had taken minimal damage and captured dozens of alien prisoners, including Commander Thex himself. Jake stood in the detention area of the Defender looking at the Korthak commander through reinforced transparent walls. Thex was a massive creature nearly 8 feet tall with 4 muscular arms and intelligent yellow eyes. His gray skin was covered with scars from previous battles. Dr. Walsh had been working for hours to establish communication with the prisoners. The Korthak language was harsh and guttural, but the universal translator systems were beginning to make sense of it. "You," Thex said slowly in broken human language. "What species are you? Your ships are not in our databases." Jake smiled coldly. "We are humans from Earth, and we are here to stop you from killing the Zilani." Thex made a sound that might have been laughter. "Humans. I have heard this name before. You are the Deathworlders from Sector 7, the savages who learned to use tools." "That is right," Jake replied. "And now these savages are going to teach you what happens when you pick on people who cannot fight back." The interrogation that followed revealed crucial information about the Korthak siege of Azura Prime. Commander, Thex was not a fanatic or a true believer. He was a professional soldier who followed orders and wanted to survive. When Dr. Walsh showed him recordings of human wars and human weapons, Thex began to understand what kind of enemy his people had chosen to fight. "The siege fleet has 47 ships," Thex admitted after watching footage of human orbital bombardments. "Supreme Commander Gorvex commands from the battleship Destructor," They have planet crackers but have not used them yet because they want to capture Zilani biotechnology intact. Jake felt a cold anger building in his chest. How many Zilani have you killed? Thex looked away. The reports say 3 million in the first bombardment. More since then. Gorvex wants to break their spirit before the final assault. Dr. Walsh had been monitoring the conversation while analyzing captured Korthak databases. Captain, I have accessed their military records. According to this data, humans are classified as Species 847C in their threat assessment files. What does that classification mean? Jake asked. Dr. Walsh read from the alien database. Quote, Species 847C evolved on a Class 12 death world with extreme gravitational forces, violent weather systems, and aggressive predator species. Recommended policy is complete avoidance, direct military engagement inadvisable, due to unpredictable combat doctrine and psychological instability. End quote. Jake looked back at Commander Thex, who was now showing obvious fear. Is that what you think of us? That we are insane? Thex nodded slowly. Your people fight without honor. You use weapons in ways that make no sense. You ram ships instead of standing off and fighting properly. You board vessels and fight in close quarters like animals. No civilized species does these things. You are right, Jake said quietly. We do fight like animals. Because on our world, the animals that fought hardest were the ones that survived. And now you have given us a reason to fight harder than we have ever fought before. The captured Korthak data revealed the full scope of their military operation. Jake transmitted everything to Admiral Carter and the main human fleet. Soon the aliens who thought they were hunting weak prey would discover what happened when Deathworlders decided to hunt them back. Supreme Commander Gorvex stood on the bridge of the battleship Destructor and watched Azura Prime burn below. The beautiful blue world was now covered with smoke and fire. Soon it would be nothing but ash and rock. The Zilani would learn what happened to species that possessed valuable resources, but lacked the strength to defend them. The Korthak commander was 8 feet tall with 4 powerful arms and skin like gray stone. His yellow eyes showed no emotion as he watched the orbital bombardment continue. He had destroyed 6 civilizations in his 30-year career, and felt nothing but professional satisfaction. Weakness disgusted him, and the Zilani were the weakest creatures he had ever encountered. Commander, his communications officer called from across the bridge. We have lost contact with Supply Convoy 7 in the Zirian Nebula. Gorvex turned from the main display. Supply convoys did not simply disappear. When was their last transmission? 18 hours ago, sir. They reported normal progress toward our position. Then nothing. This was unusual but not impossible. Space was dangerous, and even military vessels could suffer catastrophic system failures. Send Scout Group 3 to investigate. If the convoy is disabled, we need those supplies for the final assault. The bridge crew continued their work while Gorvex returned to watching the planet below. The Zilani had stopped trying to evacuate their cities. They were huddled in underground shelters waiting to die. It was pathetic, but it was also efficient. Soon this world would be empty and ready for Korthak colonization. 6 hours later, Scout Group 3 also went silent. Gorvex felt the first stirring of concern. Losing one group might be an accident. Losing 2 groups suggested enemy action. But what enemy? The Zilani had no military forces. The other galactic powers had all refused to intervene. Sir, the sensor operator called urgently. Multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. The main display changed to show the tactical situation. 42 ships had just arrived and were moving toward Azura Prime at high speed. The computer was analyzing their design patterns but found no matches in the Korthak database. Unknown fleet, this is Supreme Commander Gorvex of the Korthak Empire. He broadcast on all frequencies. You are entering a military zone. Identify yourselves immediately. The response came back in a language the universal translators had difficulty processing. When the computers finally made sense of it, Gorvex felt something he had not experienced in decades: fear. This is Admiral Lisa Carter of the Earth Defense Force. You have 10 minutes to withdraw from Zilani space or we will remove you by force. Earth Defense Force, humans, the Deathworlders had come. Gorvex had read the classified reports about species 847C. Most Korthak commanders dismissed the stories as propaganda designed to prevent contact with primitive savages. But Gorvex had spoken with survivors from the border regions. He knew the rumors about human combat capabilities were not exaggerated. All ships prepare for battle, Gorvex ordered. Form defensive screen around the planet. These primitives think they can challenge the Korthak Empire. The 47 ships of the Korthak siege fleet moved into formation. They had superior numbers and their vessels were larger than most of the human ships. Gorvex told himself that size and firepower would overcome human unpredictability. He was wrong. The human fleet attacked unlike any military force Gorvex had ever faced. Instead of forming battle lines and exchanging long-range fire, they came in fast and scattered. Small human fighters buzzed around the massive Korthak ships like angry insects, targeting sensors and weapon systems. Larger human vessels fired explosive projectiles that punched through Korthak armor and detonated. Inside their hulls, the human flagship UES Retribution was half the size of Gorvex's battleship, but it fought like a creature possessed. Instead of standing off and firing safely from long range, it charged directly at the Korthak formation. Its weapons blazed continuously, never pausing to recharge or cool down. When Korthak ships tried to ram it, the human vessel dodged at the last second and fired point-blank into their hulls. Captain Jake Morrison's stealth ships appeared from nowhere and launched antimatter torpedoes into the engines of 3 Korthak cruisers. The explosions lit up space like new stars and sent debris spinning in all directions. Other human ships used tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare, ramming damaged enemies and firing on vessels that were trying to surrender. Within the first hour, 12 Korthak ships had been destroyed or disabled. The humans had lost only 2 vessels, and both of those had rammed enemy ships in suicide attacks. Gorvex realized with growing horror that these creatures actually preferred to die fighting rather than retreat in good order. "Sir," his tactical officer reported with panic in his voice, "the humans are using nuclear weapons in close-quarters combat. They are firing radioactive projectiles that contaminate everything they hit." Gorvex watched his carefully organized fleet dissolve into chaos. Human ships were everywhere, moving too fast to track properly and using weapons that made no strategic sense. They fired explosive rounds that damaged their own ships with debris. They used electromagnetic pulse weapons that knocked out their own electronics. They seemed to care more about hurting the enemy than protecting themselves. The human Marines were even worse. When they boarded Korthak vessels, they used weapons that filled corridors with toxic gas. They threw explosive charges in enclosed spaces that could kill everyone, including themselves. They fought in zero-gravity and high-radiation areas that should have been impossible for biological creatures to survive. Colonel Maria Santos led the assault on the cruiser Vengeance with 50 Marines in powered armor. The Korthak crew outnumbered them 5-1, but the humans moved through the ship like a natural disaster. They cut through bulkheads with plasma torches, used the ship's own atmosphere as a weapon by igniting it, and showed no fear of death or injury. The Korthak defenders fought bravely, but they had been trained for civilized warfare between rational enemies. They were not prepared for creatures that treated every battle as a fight to the death and used the enemy's own ship systems against them. As his fleet crumbled around him, Gorvex made the hardest decision of his career. All remaining ships withdraw immediately. Emergency jump to hyperspace. "Sir," his communications officer protested, "we still outnumber them." "Numbers mean nothing against creatures that have no concept of acceptable losses," Gorvex replied grimly. "Retreat now or we will all die here." The surviving 23 ships of the Korthak fleet jumped to hyperspace in complete disorder. They left behind burning wrecks and thousands of dead. The siege of Azura Prime was over. On the surface of the planet, Elder Valen emerged from the underground shelters with the surviving Zilani population. Above them, the dark sky was clearing as the orbital bombardment stopped. Strange new ships were descending from space, but these vessels did not fire weapons. Instead, they broadcast messages of friendship and offers of medical aid. The Zilani had asked for mercy from the galaxy and received only silence. But the Deathworlds had heard their plea and answered with the only language that bullies understood. 3 months after the Battle of Azura Prime, Elder Valen walked through the rebuilt city center with Admiral Lisa Carter. The crystal towers that had been destroyed by Korthak bombardment now grew again. But this time they were different. Human engineering had been combined with Zilani bioarchitecture to create something entirely new. The buildings were still beautiful and alive, but now they could withstand military attack. The streets were busy with activity as Zilani and human workers labored side by side. Children of both species played together in the parks where the singing grass had been replanted. Above them, the sky was clear and blue again. The orbital defense platforms that protected the planet were jointly operated by both civilizations and armed with the most advanced weapons either species had ever created. Your people have adapted well to the changes, Admiral Carter observed as they watched a group of young Zilani learning to use human construction equipment. Elder Valen nodded thoughtfully. We had no choice but to adapt. The galaxy showed us that being peaceful and defenseless is the same as being dead. Your people taught us that sometimes violence is necessary to protect what matters most. They stopped at a memorial wall made of living crystal that displayed the names of everyone who had died during the siege. Both Zilani civilians and human soldiers were listed together. At the bottom were words written in both languages. They died so others could live free. Dr. Kevin Walsh approached them carrying a data pad filled with research notes. In the months since the battle, he had been working with Zilani bioscientists to develop new medical technologies. The combination of human engineering and Zilani biological knowledge had already produced breakthrough treatments for diseases that had plagued both species for centuries. Admiral, I have the latest reports from our joint research projects, Dr. Walsh said with obvious excitement. The healing treatments we developed using Zilani biosynthesis are ready for field testing. We can now repair damage that would have been permanent just months ago. Admiral Carter smiled. The galaxy is going to be very interested in these developments. Speaking of which, I received word from Earth this morning. The Galactic Assembly has formally requested that I address their emergency session on Rigel Station. Elder Valen looked concerned. What will you tell them? The truth, Admiral Carter replied simply. That humanity will not stand by while innocent people are slaughtered. That we consider the protection of peaceful species to be our responsibility. The emergency session of the Galactic Assembly was unlike any diplomatic gathering in recorded history. Representatives from 400 species had gathered on Rigel Station to discuss what they called the human problem. The great assembly hall was filled with creatures of every imaginable shape and size, all united by their fear of what humanity represented. Admiral Carter stood alone at the center of the hall while hundreds of alien eyes watched her. The voices of translators filled the air as her words were converted into dozens of different languages. She wore her dress uniform with the medals she had earned fighting pirates and protecting human colonies. Today she was not just representing Earth, but speaking for every species that had ever been bullied by those stronger than themselves. Honored delegates, she began in a calm, clear voice. I know why you called me here. You want to understand why humanity intervened in the Azura Prime crisis. You want assurances that we will not disrupt the established order of galactic politics. Ambassador Kelrix of the Altarian Federation rose from his seat. His blue skin was pale with worry. Admiral Carter, your actions have destabilized an entire sector of space. The Korthak Empire is mobilizing additional fleets in response to your aggression. This could lead to a wider war. Admiral Carter turned to face the Altarian delegate directly. Ambassador Kelrix, your government received the same distress call that we did. The Zilani offered to share their medical knowledge and biosynthesis technology in exchange for protection. You chose to ignore them because helping would have been inconvenient. Murmurs of discomfort rippled through the assembly hall. Many of the delegates had been involved in the decision to abandon the Zilani to their fate. High Counselor Vorth of the Centauri Republic stood next. His mechanical voice synthesizer made his words sound harsh and cold. The established protocols exist for good reason, Admiral. Intervention in conflicts between other species leads to chaos and unpredictable consequences. You call 3 million dead Zilani an acceptable consequence? Admiral Carter asked. You call genocide a price worth paying for political stability? The assembly hall fell silent. These were creatures from advanced civilizations that prided themselves on being reasonable and sophisticated. They solved problems through negotiation and compromise. The idea of using military force to protect strangers was foreign to most of them. Supreme Chancellor Grix of the Vegan Collective activated his translation device. Admiral Carter, humanity has been classified as a Deathworlder species for good reason. Your people are unpredictable and violent. How can we trust that you will not become the next threat to galactic peace? Admiral Carter walked to the center of the hall where a holographic display showed the current political map of known space. You want to know what kind of threat humanity represents? Let me show you. She activated her personal datapad and the display changed to show recent developments around Azura Prime. In the 3 months since the battle, 17 different species have sent diplomatic missions to Earth, requesting mutual defense agreements. 12 more have asked for joint research partnerships. 6 species have formally requested human military advisors to help train their defense forces. The delegates watched in growing alarm as the display showed the expanding network of alliances centered around Earth and Azura Prime. What had started as a single rescue mission was becoming a new power block in galactic politics. The established powers had their chance to help the Zilani, Admiral Carter continued. When you chose to do nothing, you showed smaller species that they cannot depend on you for protection. Now they are turning to the only people who were willing to fight for them. Ambassador Kelrix looked desperate. Admiral, surely you understand that we could not risk war with the Korthak Empire over one world. The cost in lives and resources would have been enormous. The cost of doing nothing was higher, Admiral Carter replied firmly. When good people choose to do nothing while evil triumphs, they become part of the evil. Humanity will not make that choice. She walked back to the center of the hall and addressed the entire assembly. You fear us because we come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. That world made us strong and stubborn and unwilling to accept defeat. You call us Deathworlders and savages and think that makes us your enemies. The hall was completely silent now. Hundreds of alien representatives waited to hear what the human admiral would say next. You are wrong, Admiral Carter said quietly. We are not your enemies unless you make us your enemies. We do not want your territory or your resources. We want to build a galaxy where species like the Zilani do not die alone and afraid while others look away. She paused and looked around the great hall at faces that showed confusion, fear and uncertainty. The choice is yours. Work with us to build something better, or continue the same failed policies that let bullies destroy the innocent. But understand this. Humanity will never again stand by and watch genocide happen when we have the power to stop it. As Admiral Carter left Rigel Station to return to Earth, she knew that the galaxy would never be the same. The old order based on fear and convenience was crumbling. In its place, something new was being born. Something that would judge civilizations not by their size or age or technology, but by their willingness to protect those who could not protect themselves. On Azura Prime, Elder Valen stood once again on his crystal balcony. But now he was not alone. Human and Zilani children played in the gardens below, while their parents worked together to build a better future. Above them, ships from a dozen different worlds came and went, all seeking the protection and partnership that the Deathworlders offered. The Zilani had asked for aid and received something far more valuable. They had received hope.